issue here. Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the delay. There was some network issue, I think. I was waiting for the bridge to open. I joined at all right then. So let us start quickly. So just 1 minute. We'll be seeing about beam scopes. Okay. We'll be seeing about here beam scopes. So till now, you know what is a beam? Spring beam is a object. Spring beam is an object. Is a Java object managed by application context. Spring Bean is a Java object managed by application context. Right? So, what are the scopes of the bean? Okay. So there are two types of scopes. One is singleton and another one is prototype. So this is very, very important thing I'll be telling you. Singleton and prototype. So what is singleton and what is prototype? Singleton is single object per JVM. Single object created per JVM per application context. Anyone understood what is this? Single object created per JVM per application context. Let me tell you. Before telling you this, I'll tell you that by default, all Spring Beans are singleton in scope. By default, all Spring Beans are singleton in scope. Okay. Right. So by default, all Spring Beans are singleton in scope. Let me now go you to the, I'll tell you what is this. Just I'll open this. Okay, fine. So now what I'll do is now, if you go to your app.java, either you go for this XML or you go for this. Suppose if you go for here. Now what will happen now? It will read now line by line of the XML. So it will read line by line. Okay, it will read line by line of the XML. Okay. So whenever it sees this, it creates a employee B. So in your JVM heap memory, this is your JVM. In that we have a heap memory. Now what I'll do is, what is the meaning of auto Vaira? I told this one right already. What is auto where? Others tell. What is auto where? I told this already. Correct. Not by type, right? By name, right? By name, right? Not by type, it is by name, right? Right. Now, here it is by name. Right, correct, correct. Very good. Yeah. Fine. So now, so now say for example, now for this employee, there is a bean created and the ID of the bean is employee. And the ID of the bean is employee. Now, similarly, department will be created. Department 1, organization will be created. Okay, like this, all beans will be created. Now, finally, an application context will be created. Okay, this is an application context. Application context is also an object, right? Application context will be created. So this is a context. Okay. Now, by default, the spring beans. Okay, by default, the spring beans are singleton. Okay, these beans are singleton. Okay, the scope of the beans are singleton. The scope of beans are singleton. Right. Okay. What do you mean by singleton? All spring beans like single object created per JVM per application context. Now, suppose now if I say like this now, now I'll say like this. Now what will happen now? When I say context.get bean of this bean, whenever it says context.get bean of these, I get this object, right? Now second time I call again employee emp1 context.get bean of employee.class. Okay. Now I get the same bean, right? So these are context. Context means your application context. For this context, this bean is tied up. This context creates all these beans. Okay, now I drawn only one box, employee. But I can put other boxes also for department, department one, organization, department, department one, organization, department. Next is a department one. Next is organization. Right? Now all these beans are tied up to this. Right? Now fine. Now how many times you call this bean employee, you'll get the same bean, same object. Similarly, whenever you say now department DEPT1 is equal to context dot get bean of department dot class. So when you call this, so this bean department, you get this bean. Similarly, how many times you call the same, with the same bean ID? Context dot get bean of department dot class. So you'll get the same bean. Right? Now, suppose now you see. Now suppose now you are creating another context object. Now see, for this context object, you are passing this XML and these beans are created. Okay, these beans. For this context, all these beans. Employee, department, organization. Now what I'll do, I'll create one more context object like this in my program. How I'll do now? Now I'll say context one. Now what will happen now? A new context object is created now. That means a new application context object. A new context object is created. Okay. And that reference is context one. So new XML is passed. Okay. And now when this XML is passed to this context object, again, these beans are created. Now these beans are tied up to this new context object. That means employee, department one, organization. So employee, next is a department, department. Next is a department 1. And then organization. Right? Now when I say context 1 dot, I'll say employee EMP is equal to context 1 dot get bean of employee dot class. Now it is not context dot, it is context 1. That means a new application context. Now you'll get this bean or this bean, this bean. Now is this object and is this are same? No, different object. Okay. But now how many times I call the same, I'll get the same bean now. You see. Employee EMP1 is equal to context 1 dot get bean of employee dot class. So now what will happen now? Now context 1 dot get bean of this, context 1 dot get. Now these two beans, you'll get the same bean. Here also you'll get the same bean. That means these two beans are equal. These two beans are same. These two beans are same. Okay. But these two beans are not same. Okay. You know why? Because these are created from context and these are created from your context 1. These are created from context. Context means this one. This is one context object. Now what is singleton now? You see, how many times you call this object? Okay, how many times you call this object? Okay, on the same context, you'll get the same bean. So that's why if you see single object, so that's why you see single object created per JVM per application context. So when I say per JVM, suppose now you launch another JVM. Okay. And here you have a heap memory. How you launch another JVM? Suppose if you open one command prompt and you type Java, this is one JVM. Similarly, if you open another command prompt and type Java, this is another JVM. Now these two JVMs are different. Okay, this is one JVM, this is another JVM. Okay, now if I say JVM now, again you will have the heap memory. Right? Now here you'll have again the context object created, employee, department 1, organization. Right? Now this employee object is different from, because JVM is completely different, right? So that's why singleton means you will get the same object as long as it's from the JVM and from the same context. That is what singleton. That means you'll get the same object from the same context as long as you're calling from the same context and from the same JV. Okay. But now if you're calling from a different context, okay, now this object will be different. Now that's why singleton is like for two different contexts, you'll get two different objects. Okay. Everyone clear with this singleton? What is singleton? Singleton means as long as you are getting the bean from the same application context, right? As long as you're getting from same application context, you'll get the same object. But now if you create a different context and get the bean, now this one and this one are different. But as long as you're calling from the same context, these two are same. Everyone clear? This singleton, very, very important. So many people will get wrong here. They'll not mention per application context. It should be per application context. Okay. So this is what singleton tells. Then what is prototype? Everyone clear, right, with this singleton? Then what is prototype? So by default, if you don't specify any scope of the bean, it is singleton. Then what is prototype? So prototype scope is where the bean is created every time whenever context.getBean is called. Now you see. Now let me take this again. Application context. Then I'll say context dot get bean of, okay, employee dot class. Now I'll say employee em. Now in my XML, what I do is I take this XML. And here I'll put like scope equal to prototype, right? When I don't mention anything scope, by default it is singleton. It is granted. If I don't mention the scope, it is a singleton. Now if I mention explicitly scope equal to prototype, now you know whenever the bean is created, I mean protoscope is where the bean is created every time when context.getBean is called. That means when I say context.getBean, so every time this bean gets created. How? Now you see. Now in my JVM, is your JVM. And this is your heap memory. Now when application context start getting created, it will read this XML. In this XML, now it will see scope equal to prototype. It will not create now. Then for department, by default, it's singleton because scope is not present here. So department will be created. Okay. Department 1 is created. Department 1 is created. Next, organization is created. So this is your department. Next is a department 1. And this is your organization. And these are all tied to the context. So to this context, these are all tied. Okay. So under this context, we have department 1, organization. Now, this bean is not created now because it's scope equal to product. This bean is not created now. Now, after the first line gets completed, these 3 beans are created. Now, in the second line, I'm saying context of get bean. Now, since its scope is prototype, now you'll get an employee being created. You'll get an employee being created. Okay, so right now again when I say context dot get bean of, employee dot class, I'll say application context. I'll say like this. Now when I say like this now, so when I say context dot get bean of this one, now it will create one more object. So if where the bean is created every time whenever context dot get bean is called. Now again it will create one more object. So now this bean, sorry, this is not application context. This is employee EMP, right? This is employee EMP, right? So employee EMP1 is equal to context dot get bean of. Now this EMP1 and this EMP are different. EMP and EMP1 are different. Because context dot get bean is creates an object every time. So since for the bean scope equal to prototype, so whenever you call context dot get bean, okay, so new object is created. Okay. So everyone understood this? Prototype, if scope is prototype, every time the bean is created every time whenever context.getBean is called. Everyone understood this? Any doubts here till this part? Okay. Clear, right, everyone? So prototype means, so new object is created every time context.getBean is called. Right? When we do applications like, when do we develop applications like servlet pages? These servlets are your advanced Java, that is for web applications. Okay. Right. Clear, right, everyone? Now, if anyone asks in interview questions, what are the bean scopes? You tell singleton and prototype, and you can. Actually, I'm trying for your Google Classroom link to upload all this material. Okay, still I did not get any. I'm waiting for the reply. I'm waiting for the reply. Okay. So now, in addition to bean scopes, we'll see one more important concept is bean loading. Bean loading. Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Yes. Okay. Sure. So bean loading. Right. So bean scope and bean loading. So there are two different types of bean loading. One is eager loading. And another one is One is eager loading and another one is lazy loading. Okay. So basically what is, we'll see. We have seen bean scopes, right? Bean scopes are singleton and prototype. Singleton and prototype. And what is bean loading? Why object is called bean spring? Because Spring has given like that. Any Java object, Spring manages that. So application context will be creating those objects, right? So that those are managed by your Spring application context. So that's why they are called Spring beans. Okay, let me open this. I don't know I can open this or not. I'll open this afterwards. Okay, fine. So your bean scopes are singleton and prototype. Your bean loading is eager loading and lazy loading. By default, bean scope is singleton and bean loading is eager loading. By default, bean scoping is singleton. With this we have seen already, and bean loading is eager loading. What is bean loading? Bean loading will determine. So beans are created by application context, right? Are created by Spring application context. So bean loading tells that when this bean should be created. Eager means bean is created during application context creation. And lazy means bean is created during context.getBean creation call. So that means, let me say I have like this now XML file. See, the same will be applicable for annotations also. Okay, I'll tell you in. See, in annotations, say suppose for scope prototype, here we have given scope as prototype, right? In annotation, how we will give, I'll tell you. So now let us take now like this. Now I'll say now like this. Now what will happen, during the time of application context creation only. So this is the place where application context is created. So this is the place where application context is created. So during the time of this application context creation only, okay, eager loading means it will create, by default, these beans are all eager loading. That means this is the place where application context is created. So by default, all the beans all the beans are loaded eagerly. Eagerly means quickly, like at the time of application context creation. That means when application context is getting created, okay, beans are created. Okay, by default, all the beans are loaded eagerly. When application context is getting created, so beans are created in the memory. That means at the time of application context creation only, these beans are all created. Okay, all these beans. Now we have context, and for this context we have employee, department, department 1, organization, so employee, all these are attached. Okay, so because eager loading means the beans are created during the time of application context creation. Okay, now I'll change the behavior now like this. Now I'll say like this. Now here I'll say lazy init equal to true. I'll say like this, lazy init equal to true. Okay. Now what will happen is, so when I say lazy init equal to true, now the beans are lazily loaded. That means it is not eager, it is a lazy. That means now during the application context creation, now this bean is not created because it is saying lazy init equal to. That means it is a lazy loaded. Lazily loaded. Lazily means it is not loaded immediately. But this bean is created because by default it is eager loaded, eager loaded, eager loaded. So in your JVM heap memory, now you have 3 beans created: department, department, organization, and you have application context. Now, when this bean is created, now lazy init true means when I call context.getBean of getBean of employee.class. So at that time you'll be, so at the time this bean gets created. That means at the time so till then this is your department. Then your department 1. And then your organization. Okay. This is your context. So, right now what I'll do now I'll say context dot get bean of employee. Now since this is a lazily loaded. So now I'll say EMP employee is created. This is created when during the context dot get bean. Okay. Now since is a singleton now, because I did not specify any scope here. By default, it is a lazily loaded and it's a singleton bin. Scope by default is singleton. Default is singleton. So now how many times you call the same from the same context? Employee.class. So how many times you call the same context that get bean? So you'll get the same bean again. So now these two beans are equal. These two beans are equal. Only the difference is, since we have specified lazy init equal to true, so this will be created. This will be created when context. It will not be only eager beans are created during the time of context creation, but lazy beans you'll be getting created at the time of context. First time when you call context get bean, at the time lazy bean will be created. Everyone understood these scenarios? Everyone understood these scenarios? See, now actually in the tomorrow session, what I'll do is we'll see permutations and combinations. Scope, and here I'll mention singleton. Next is prototype. And here I'll mention lazily loaded, eagerly loaded, eager. Okay, next is eager and lazy. Next is eager and lazy. So how I'll say is, so what will happen if singleton and eager? This is your loading. Okay, bean loading. Bean loading. Singleton and eager, singleton and lazy. Okay. Prototype and eager, prototype and lazy. So these combinations we are going to see. Singleton and eager. Okay, these are default behavior, right? Default scope and default lazy loading. Next is singleton and lazy. Next, prototype and eager. And prototype and lazy. So these are the combinations we are going to see. So eager means it will be created during the time of application context creation, and lazy means it will be created only during the time of context.getBean creation. So we're going to see these combinations, how the bean behaves. Now for lazy beans, the bean will not be created during the application context creation. It will be created only during the time of context.getBean. Okay. Any questions till now? See, when we put lazy in it equal to false, it is as if it is equal to eager loading, right? By default, it is an eager loading. If you don't put, even if you put lazy in it equal to false means, even if you don't put that also, it is an eager loading. See, if you put lazy in it equal to false, or even if you don't put at all, it is equal to eager loading. So then the bean is created during the time of application context creation. So the beans are created by Spring application context. Eager means bean is created during application context creation. That means during this time. And lazy means bean is created during context.getBean call. Any doubts till now? Any questions till now? Okay then. So tomorrow we will see. Actually, I should have continued. I could have continued this also, but I got some network issue here. Some power fluctuations are happening. So I'll continue tomorrow. Yeah, sure. Okay. See, I already gave this PPT to all of you. Just follow this. That means I sent you in the chat in the zip folder. In the zip folder, this PPT is there. You can go through this PPT. Okay, sure. Thank you. So thank you all. See you tomorrow. Okay. Thank you all. Okay. Anyway, I'll get the Google Classroom link. I'll upload all the thing in the classroom. Okay. By today or tomorrow, I'll definitely get the classroom link. Okay then. Thank you all. Thank you.